Well, good morning. Thank you for letting me be part of your Monday meditation. My name is Mike Lloyd. I'm with Community Emergency Service from downtown Minneapolis, and just have a few things I'd like to share with you today. You know, some time ago, several weeks ago, someone asked me the question, what is God doing for you in your life today? And I've paused to think about that many times over the last few weeks. But I have just a couple things I'd like to share with you about that. First of all, probably the most important thing that God has done for me today and every day is the gift of His grace. John 3:16 talks about how God so loved the world that He gave His only Son, that whosoever believed in Him should not perish but have everlasting life. That changed my life. I came to that realization in my early 30s, and it touches my life every single day. The second thing I mentioned is God's unconditional love. You know, I grew up in a small town in southern Minnesota. My dad died when I was 9 years old. My mother raised 4 children on basically Social Security survivor benefits, so not very much. We were very poor, and we knew we were poor. Unfortunately, my mother had lots of emotional problems and eventually became addicted to prescription drugs, so she was absent from a good share of my life growing up. So I became independent at 12, and first job at 14, and was out on my own at 18. But God has really been good to me through my life. He provided me an opportunity to work for an organization that eventually became my career. I worked in business for 35 years, and so I was very blessed. But the other thing that I became aware of is that God has a plan for our life, and it's not always apparent to us. I was successful in business for 35 years and enjoyed what I did, had lots of opportunities, things I never would have done otherwise. But I really felt that God was calling me to something else. So at 50, I started feeling that calling. At 55, I left my job, retired, and decided I was going to look for whatever that calling was that God had for me. And in my later 50s, I began working in the nonprofit world, and I am with Community Emergency Service and have been there the last 10 years of my life. And I often ask myself when I first came what God's plan was for me in bringing me to CES. But Jeremiah 29:11 says, God has a plan to prosper us and not to harm us, and He wants to bless us. And really I came to realize that in coming to CES, many of the struggles that I had when I was younger were preparation for something else in my life. So coming to CES, bringing my business acumen, I've been able to help CES grow in its repeatability and its sustainability, and also with my connection and understanding of the needs of the low-income people who are struggling in our community, I can have an appreciation for what the folks that we serve are struggling with. So it's become my calling and mission in life, but God's generosity and His great grace to us has been evident. The last thing I would mention is that God's provision is sufficient. That's really a challenge to understand when you're working in a nonprofit, because you're usually short on resources, but it's become very apparent to me that when we walk according to His plan, He provides for our needs, and that provision is sufficient. So each day we walk by faith that His support is going to help us meet the needs that we have to face. One of the things I would say about that is that we don't do it alone. We do it with the support of other people, and part of that provision are the folks of people like Colonial Church, who have been so much a part of CES over so many years, well before I came to CES. We've received, tremendous financial support, of course, but beyond that, we've had, the food drives, as you're doing now, which is part of Minnesota Food Share. That's critically important to us. 80% of the food that we distribute is donated from folks like yourselves. But also you provided lots of volunteer support. You've provided advocate support for our food shelf. You've had volunteers helping to pack and raise food donations, as well as we've had board members from Colonial Church on our board. So the support from organizations like Colonial Church is so vital. We have 125,000 client visits every year. That's an overwhelming number, frankly. You don't realize it when you're seeing them each day, but every one of those people comes to us with a need. And those needs would not be met if it were not for the support of people like Colonial Church. So I just want to say thank you to all of you for your very generous support. I just want to ask a very special blessing on you, and wish you a very great Monday.